This is the On the Run with Jess and Tom podcast.
I am Jessica Taggart.
Tom Conley.
Welcome to the podcast. So today we have a book club recording that we want to share with you. We're going to talk about this book named Mind Shift by Erwin McManus. And I feel like this is a book we both started reading because we found it very relevant to the things we're doing, to the work we're doing with our personal development. And we're actually trying to learn how to shift our mind, to be in a different place, to become a better version of who we are. Tom is going to tell you a little bit about the author and how we found him and why are we so drawn to his work.
Yeah, I'm going to read the dedication in the back cover, and it says, Erwin Raphael McManus is a renowned life architect, award-winning author and artist. With over 1 million book sales and translations into multiple languages, he has captivated audiences in stadiums across 75 countries on 5 continents. His creative expertise has extended to consulting for esteemed organizations, from the NFL to the Pentagon. For 3 decades, McManus has advised CEOs, athletes, celebrities, and billion-dollar companies, helping them overcome limitations and unlock their professional genius. As a founder and lead pastor of Mosaic, a global spiritual movement, he has inspired millions to lead impactful humanitarian initiatives alongside with his wife, Kim. He continues to coach leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide, sharing his wisdom through McManus Mastermind and the 7 frequencies of communication. And so we ran across Erwin McManus listening to the Craig Groeschel Leadership podcast, and Aaron was a guest on that podcast, and it was the first time I had ever heard of him. And him and Craig Groeschel had a very intriguing conversation, which led us to Erwin's book and doing some research about him online. And he's just a really impactful leader and thinker. And so, as Jessica mentioned earlier, this is in line with a lot of the mindset work that her and I are doing, and that is a great interest of ours. And so we thought this would be a natural fit for the podcast.
And one of the things I feel like it drew me to him after Tom shared the first podcast I listened with him. He's a man of faith, and he's also a family man. He really knows what he's talking about. He has a long, beautiful relationship with his wife, and he actually has a podcast with his son, and I feel like this is the kind of thing I look up to, and I feel like it'll be so great if we get to have a relationship like that with our children, where we can have these open conversations, and so it's someone I really look up to, and it'll be it's like a role model, right? So when we read this book, of course, we found different chapters to be more relevant to the situations we're currently living. So we're going to discuss 5 different mind shifts. There are 13 in this book, but we're going to discuss 5 of them. One being the first one is change your mind shift number 0. Then the next one is mind shift number 5, you are your own ceiling. Then we have mind shift number 7, which is no one knows what they are doing. Mind shift number 9, you find what you are. And mind shift number 10, be average at almost everything. So we found these mind shifts to be very relevant to, like I said before, very relevant to our current situation. So mind shift number 0, Tom is going to tell you a little bit about the story in mind shift number 0. Is this one?
This one. All right, and so this story is one that Erwin recounts from 1990, October of 1990, and he recalls driving home in traffic, listening to a sportscaster comment on the recent defeat of Buster Douglas by Evander Holyfield. And so that the sportscaster makes a comment that some people are just designed for failure or something similar like that, engineered for failure, I believe.
Structured.
Structured, sure, for failure. And so, that this was very impactful. And for a little bit of the background on the story was that, Mike Tyson had held the heavyweight championship for a little over 2 years at that point. He was a fierce boxer. I think he was 20-0 or 22-0. I forget his exact record, but he was, a phenomenon at that time. I mean, everyone, again, in my era, it was held Mike Tyson in high esteem. I mean, he was widely known as the fiercest boxer that ever box. And so, at that time, Buster Douglas against 41-1 odds or 41-0 odds or something, defeated him by knockout in Tokyo, Japan. Worldwide, televised fight. And so, just really shocked the boxing world at that time. And so, what everyone's speaking about is 8 months later, after Douglas had lost his only title challenge to Evander Holyfield, showed up to the fight. They said at least 15 pounds overweight. He was out of shape. Clearly was not in fighting shape. He had not maintained the state he was in when he knocked out Mike Tyson, just 8 or 9 months earlier. And so the sportscaster's comment of some people are just structured for failure was a reflection on Douglas. And so this led Erwin, to pursue the truth of that statement, and at that time, I think he says in the book, or I know actually he says in the book, that he wondered if it was true, could it also be true of him? And so now 34 years later or so, we arrive at where we are now, which is Mind Shift. And the full title of the book is Mind Shift. You don't have to be a genius to think like one. And so he's come up with these 13 fundamental principles that, he sees as mindset critical attitudes. And so that's how we got to Mindset Zero.
Mm-hmm. And that story is so it's really amazing how when you have a desire to do something, anyone can achieve, whatever you set you put your mind into, right? But
you actually will achieve good or bad.
You will
what
achieve
put
it.
your mind to.
Yes. So so you better put good things in your mind. So, when you have this desire to achieve something, you can train, you can prepare yourself, you can do all the work and achieve what you're, trying to attain. But if you don't change your mind, like the fundamental, structure of your mind, like in this case for him to actually be a winner, like a life winner, that could just disappear. After you get to that first step, you're like, okay, I got what I trained for, and it's not a long lasting, you know, shift, so that's why they said some people are just structured for failure,
Mhm.
and even though he had the biggest win, because he actually conditioned himself to get there, his mindset wasn't,
Mhm.
switched.
I wonder if it was the perception at the time, right? Too. I mean, this isn't necessarily, I guess it's relevant to this. I mean, so if you think about it, he beats Mike Tyson against 41-0 odds or 41-1 odds. I'm not a sports person, everybody knows this. And so the odds are against him. The world's telling him he can't do it, and he tells himself he can.
Mm-hmm.
And now, 9 months later, he's going to fight Holyfield. I think, people were pretty. There's definitely a divided camp onto whether or not he was going to win. I mean, the bet was on, and so now that the pressure is off of him in terms of is he good enough or not, he just completely folds. And again, we don't know the intricacies of this. We don't, obviously don't know what was going on in his head or what wasn't. But yeah, it's mindset and it's roadmap. Like I said to you, when we talked about this a couple of times already, the whys are so important. They're so important. Think about your own life. Or I can't say for sure. I can tell you my young life and what's largely the cultural norm here is, you're going to get married. First, you're going to go to college. You're going to get married. You're going to buy a house. You're going to have kids. But who, I shouldn't say who, many people have a plan for how that's gonna look. Other people, they get to the kids part and the whole thing falls apart because they were never really planning or preparing on how to be a married dad or anything else like that. And so it really does matter as to what your goals are. Buster Douglas might have said, I'm gonna knock Mike Tyson out. I'm gonna knock Mike Tyson out. And he did it. He didn't have a plan for day two. What happened when he left the ring? And I think that's the case with a lot of people. And it's funny that this is something you felt really resonated with you, and it didn't so much with me when we went through the notes, but it does now as I think about that, because I didn't have long-term strategies for a lot of things in my life. I had events, that are things I wanted to achieve and things like that. And so this is certainly relevant to I think many people's existence. And if it's not relevant to you, I am envious of you if you've had a life plan. I know people like that too, who knew what they wanted to be at 16 or 17 years old, and they pursued it, became it, still are it, might have retired from it by now, and are spending it somewhere. But that wasn't my story.
This is something great to learn, right? Because how many times, at least in my experience too, how many times have I planned to do something and I got to the stage where, okay, I'm gonna open up a business, I'm gonna have a website, I'm gonna do, so I did all the work on, oh, I did it, right? I did it, but then all of a sudden,
the adrenaline.
I mean, I didn't really have a plan to keep going, and my mindset was, if I ever felt a little bit of rejection, if I perceived that I was being rejected in any way, I would just give up,
Yeah.
So there was no plan for, what if your product is not well received? Now I think about it and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm not taking it to the right places, right? Maybe I need to improve certain things. But my exit back then was like, I'm just gonna give up.
But
right?
Yeah, but I'll say the same thing, because I really believe this is also part of it. What were your whys? Why did you want to have a website? Why did you want to have a clothing line? Was it for the attention that comes with it? That could very well be the case, right? That could just be I just want to be recognized as someone, And so if your whys aren't lined up from the beginning, then once you arrive there and you meet the resistance of the work, it doesn't feel like fun anymore. And I can tell you a dozen things that I pursued over the course of my life that I did until it started to feel like work. And I was like, oop, I hate this, and that's part of that too. And so,
yeah, I think a lot of the things I've done, with my life came from that mindset, of I want to prove the world I'm worth it. I want to prove my mom I'm visible. I want to prove, everyone who told me I wasn't capable that I am, and that's not the right motive, right? That's not really.
But it's
and
certainly
I feel
not uncommon either.
right. It's not uncommon, but that only takes you somewhere. It doesn't take you to actually materialize the actual goal, materialize or maybe just leave your purpose,
It
right?
depends what it drives you to do, because it can, I hate to say it, but it can be a goal, a successful motivation for a lot of people. A lot of people, if they have that really burned deeply into their gut, it's enough to sustain them through the stages of a career and the development of a life of sorts,
But in my case, I think, oh yeah, I want to prove them that I am good enough. But then if it was getting too good, who am I to be that good?
Well, sure.
Who am I?
Everybody talks about today, the imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
You're like, well, wait a minute, I don't know what I'm doing, or I shouldn't be achieving this, or this isn't for me.
It's a contradiction. It is a contradiction, because you really get to, you're at the door of, getting to the place where you really want to get. And then all of a sudden it's like, is too good, and you sabotage it with another limitation.
Sure.
So it's just mind plays tricks. Your mind can play you really, 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 really well, and your limitations, that mindset from the past and whatever you were told, and I think he talks about the limiting boxes in another chapter that we're going to discuss also, but I wanted to read this, what I wrote on my notes. It says, your mental structures unlocked untapped potential and unleash unimaginable capabilities. You become your thoughts. If you transform your thoughts or the patterns of your thoughts, you transform your life. The journey begins in your mind. Right. But sometimes, I mean, most of the time, we don't really recognize what the patterns are because they're so hidden in your subconscious mind. You don't even know what's driving you. You know, you don't even know how much is your ego mind working against you, and
In most cases, people think this is my lot in life. This is just my
my story,
story,
and
my destiny.
yeah, and I think once you start seeing that things are not flowing, things are not moving the way you wish, then you start asking these questions, right? And you want to really go back and identify where these limitations are coming from so you can start bringing them to your conscience, um, bringing them to consciousness so you can actually work on them and say, you know what, this is not me anymore. These limitations and this identity that I adapted from these experiences, or I adapted from people telling me who I was, is not me anymore. I was created perfectly and I have all the capabilities to achieve what I need to achieve, and to change that mindset so I can achieve what I need to achieve. So, and like I said before, this is like a daily job, it's a daily,
It's moment by moment.
yeah, moment by moment, and you have to make that switch every single moment because I mean your mind always wants to go back to what's comfortable, and what's comfortable is what was very uncomfortable, but it just became a pattern, it became a pattern, so it becomes your comfort zone and you tend to go back to it because it's just what you know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if you like to read the last paragraph where he talks about The Walking Dead. I really like that part. This is the book. Um,
What point me in what direction that page is?
that's page 12.
If you create a social experiment to test the limits of mental health, mental clarity, mental toughness, and mental agility, it would look a lot like The Walking Dead, the TV series created by Frank Darabont, where a virus changes the landscape of human existence. For 11 seasons, I faithfully followed the life of Rick Grimes, a sheriff who awakes in a hospital bed after the world has been overtaken by zombies. The entire story seems to ask one simple question: can a person remain good when the entire world has gone bad? At first, the audience thinks the danger to humanity's survival is the walkers, as they are called. Soon they realize the real danger is the living, or perhaps that's an overstatement. The survivors on the show are not living at all. They're consumed by fear, hate, greed, and power, and driven to unspeakable violence. They are worse than the dead. They are not the walking dead. They are the living dead. Flash forward to the final episode of this cult classic. In the closing moments of the show, the characters we've come to know and love, at least the ones who survived, begin to chant a final proclamation. All season, I had wondered what the final line of the show would be. One by one, the characters all begin to say the same thing, at first individually, then in unison. The line paralyzed me. It took my breath away. We are the ones who live. That's who we are. That's who I am. That's who you are. Existing isn't enough. Surviving isn't enough. This is why we fight. We rise above the fray. We set the new standard. We reclaim our humanity. We create the future. We are the unstoppable. We are the ones who tell the story. We are the ones who live.
I really love that last paragraph, and what he says, when they were chanting, and existing is not enough, definitely, and surviving is not enough. And a lot of times I feel like most of us feel like we're just surviving, because life can be so tough and we just get wrapped into our daily routines, running around, all these jobs, all these things that we do, and you leave very little space for living, you know? Well, yeah, it's tough, it is tough when you when you just go around the clock and then you realize you're not leaving a lot of space for life, because you have so much on your plate. And a lot of us go through that. So hopefully by changing our mind shift, hopefully by changing our mind,
We're getting rid of your plate.
we
We're getting rid of your plate.
we can we can achieve, that dream life we all we all want. So the next mind shift is mind shift number 5, which is you are your own ceiling. Tom is gonna share 2 pages with
I
us.
am? Which
Yeah.
two?
59 and 60.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the highlighted parts, right?
You say so. I just work here. You are your own ceiling. We all tell ourselves a story. I'm too damaged to ever be healed. I've made too many mistakes to make something of my life. I just can't get a break. I would have accomplished so much if others hadn't held me down. I'm not talented enough to do something significant with my life. I don't have enough money to create wealth. I'm the victim of an unfair system. I'm too young to take on so much responsibility. I'm too old to start over again. The self-limiting stories we tell ourselves are endless. If you describe your life using all the obstacles that you keep from living up to your potential, you will convince yourself the reason you have such a low ceiling is that you were born with such a great disadvantage. But if you see all those obstacles as opportunities, you will write a very different story in your life. In the end, what becomes clear is that you are your own ceiling.
And that's 100% true. You know, um, those things we were told have built a limiting box, and those things we believe to be truth, and the perceptions of like life being unfair, not belonging, not being enough, all these things. And we just really need to know where this comes from, so like I was telling this before, we need to we need to identify where these limitations are coming from, so we can actually try to change them or rewrite the story, right? We're talking a lot about rewriting the story, and that victim mentality, I am the victim of everything and everyone, blaming everything and everyone for our shortcomings, and not taking responsibility for the things we have done, or not taking responsibility for just having that mindset, for not changing the mindset, and if we don't take responsibility, no one else is going to do it, so.
But you're shouldn't say most people. People suffering from these things are most often going to want to remove the burden of guilt, right? Not just guilt, but responsibility to correct it. And so if it's not my fault, it's not my responsibility to correct it. Hey, I don't run the place. You know what I mean? And it go, it's right along with that same thing. It's consciously, unconsciously conscious, or however you want to say it, but I feel like it's just it's an easy way out. And so once you take ownership of the things in your life, and now you're forced to take action,
Mhm.
that's a scary thing for a lot of people, because as I said earlier, they may not know what to do. I mean, I know there's been many times, you get into situations in your life, you don't know what to do, how to get out of it, how to think, how to change your mind, um, yeah, there's no rule set for you,
Mhm. And even those things, you're not at fault. You know, if you don't take responsibility for the change you want to make, it's not happening. You know, the aggressor is not going to take responsibility. The people who are labeling you are not going to take responsibility. So you have to take responsibility for how you are labeling yourself because of others, you know? How are you taking this identity as being yours? You know, that's your responsibility to get rid of those stories that are not you anymore, you know? And one of the notes I took from this chapter says, if we don't take responsibility, we give away our power. You can't change something you're not responsible for. You know, like the offenders are not going to take responsibility. People who have
But
told
is
you.
it their fault even? I mean, I don't even want to get up, but most of this comes down to our belief in ourselves, right? And so it's not somebody else's fault for doubting us or questioning us or not agreeing with our principles or our goals. It's really just up to us to be true to what we want to be. You know, they're not the enemy. You know, they're just somebody who has an opinion different than ours, and that we at different times place at a higher value than our own, you know.
Yeah, and that's one of the lessons I've learned, you know, because my biggest thing was if I ever felt like that rejection, right? Because I grew up feeling that. And but now when I think about it, I'm like, we are spiritual beings living in this physical form, right? And my physical appearance was always something that I had a problem with, you know, because either I was too dark, I looked like a little boy when I was growing up, and I always felt less than, right? So it was just really hard for me to get past that rejection, you know. But now when I think about it, I'm like, you know, I'm not this physical person anymore. I am spirit living in this physical body in this time period. So now I feel like my connections with other people are in a different level, you know, as my spirit connecting to other spirits, you know. So now I you know, finally was able to remove that barrier, like that barrier. Is that how I said? That barrier and say, you know what, this is not going to stop me anymore. You know, I am able to speak up. I am able to come into any room and be present because I'm not this physical person anymore. You know, I can connect to others with my spirit, and whoever is not ready to connect like that is fine. You know, I'm not offended by people who are not ready to receive what I have to offer, you know, or to be in my same channel, you know, so to vibrate in my same channel. So I don't the rejection is not the same anymore. You know, I don't feel it like I used to.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
So the next mind shift we're gonna discuss is no one knows what they're doing. And Tom has some notes on this
Nobody
chapter.
knows about not knowing what you're doing better than I. No, and so I thought this was a really important concept, which I probably didn't come to this kind of realization in my own life until like my mid-20s or something. You know, I've been in the workforce for a long time. And you go into every new occasion. And so let me, I'll go through really what he says, which is I didn't really take huge notes on this because to me it was like this is an incredibly obvious thing. And so I just took a couple excerpts out and then I'll speak about it. And so he said, the truth is, no matter what direction you choose for your life, on the first day, you are not qualified to do that job. But that does not make you an imposter. It simply makes you a beginner. Such an important concept and something I often spoke to my kids about. And so I think that that's so critical to know. Like everyone starts out not knowing, right? I mean, I know for sure myself and definitely my youngest child would be petrified to begin something new, assuming it's going to be embarrassing. I'm not going to know what to do. I don't know how to do that. It's like, yeah, nor does anyone else on that field, in that, musical class, whatever it is, if everybody starts out not knowing. Sure, some people are more proficient in things. There'll always be people that are ahead and behind or whatever, but nobody starts out an expert, and I think that's the case even today with the education system, right? People get out of school, they graduate, with their undergrad or whatever they do, and they're immediately like, I want to be the CEO of this company, you know? But it's like, well, yeah, but you know, you still need to go through the ranks. Everybody starts out at ground zero. People aren't necessarily expecting you to be excellent. Not anybody that's got any kind of experience. Any decent manager, any good leader, any experienced coach, or anyone in a position of management knows that you're coming to them green, or that they expect to receive you green, unless they've hired a mid-management executive, or a seasoned professional ball player or something like that. They expect you not to know nothing. But your own perception is that, uh, you know I'm not good enough, or I don't know how to do this, and it scares people out of even trying things.
Mhm.
And so I thought this was just such a great concept, and he goes on to really expand upon this. I'm not going to get into it, but he's had this guy's had many careers, and he goes through. He was a fashion designer, and a movie producer, and like a whole bunch of things that he learned on the job, basically, how to do. But what kept him, you know, um, in it, and allowed him to be successful, is that he worked his tail off doing it. He took instruction from people. He was either surrounded by people that knew it, and he was a great student, or he sought out experts and allowed himself to be taught. And so that's not necessarily part of this mind shift. The you don't know anything part is the mind shift part, but the be a teachable spirit is the my part. If you're teachable, if you're willing to be a student, you can master anything.
Mhm.
But humility is key, and hard work is even more key than just knowing.
Yeah, it just takes, that mindset, that mind shift where you say, you know what, I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna learn in the road. Like when I was offered this job, helping survivors of domestic violence, as a healing coordinator, I was like, who am I? I knew I was already doing my healing work. I was already doing a lot of self-discovery, and I was studying a lot of the personal development and stuff. So I was doing the work. So when I was offered this position, I thought to myself, if I was offered this position, it's because God thinks I'm ready, you know? So I'm just gonna dive in, and I'm gonna prepare myself as I remember my first session. Um, I prepare myself enough, to be there, to be present, and to put myself to the service of whoever walked in the door. So the first lady, it was just one lady actually in this class. And but I was so grateful to have the opportunity to meet this person, because she really needed somebody to talk to, and she really made me feel like I was there for a reason, and it was only one person, but I was glad I was there for her when she needed someone, and then the whole project started taking a life of its own. These people, these women, they taught me a lot, and in that pursuit to trying to find ways to help him, I found ways to help myself, and that's I was there like knowing nothing. I started not really knowing a lot
Right.
about the
That's a
work.
best case scenario. I mean, if you look at it in the human sense of not knowing what you're doing, the single attendee is probably your best case scenario, right? Because you can still figure out your processes there with that one person. Secondly, I think most often in life, I mean, you are connecting with humans in a one-on-one scenario anyway. And we say, well, even just one person. We say it all the time. Even just one person is plenty.
Yeah.
If you can impact something, lift someone, encourage someone, anyone, you've got a win on your hands.
Yeah. And that's the way I felt, I even when I left that class that night, I was so like so moved for the opportunity, you know, so grateful for the opportunity. And I was like, and everything just started happening, you know, more things came to my lab, you know, more knowledge, more techniques that I learned. And
Let me just imagine you're a different person and this happens. You walk into the room, you see one person and go, well, I'm gonna cancel for tonight. You know, we didn't have any turnout, and so thanks for coming. We'll catch you next week. And you lose the opportunity. That person that desperately needs to connect with somebody loses that opportunity. And that's how doors close, I believe. You know, that's
yeah,
how doors, you know, I think we're given a lot of opportunities in life to step into the next, you know, the next big thing or the next realm for our existence. And just by that, again, this is mindset without beating the death out of this term. This is the mindset, right? You could have simply said, I don't want to do this. And
mm,
so, you know, there's another mindset in this book, and I don't, you know, I know we picked some we want to talk about and others not, but you know, well, it applies to two, one of which you're going to speak later. But you know, talent is a hallucinogen. That's one, and that's one of the ones I originally went through and I really liked. But you know, we only have a certain amount of time here. And talent is a hallucinogen, right? And so, kind of what I said, people getting out of school and all, you know, they think they want to be the CEO. A lot of times, people think that their God-given talent is really the deciding factor in things, or really more important than practice, than working hard, than doing the work, than you know, putting your heart and soul into something. And I think in this particular situation, this has to do with that too. This is about
mhm,
you, how you see your value, how you see that individual's value, and what are they you know, entitled to from you, right? And they're
mhm.
still entitled to 100% of your effort, whether there's one person in that room or 100,000 people in that
Yeah,
arena.
yeah,
That they are entitled to 100% of what you have to give, you know.
yeah. I feel like that's one of the things you really find you find the reward on the things you do when you actually give yourself 100% to it,
Yeah,
you know,
you got to
when
stretch.
you put your soul, your mind, your ideas, your heart into the work you're gonna do and how you're gonna serve others, you know, it's just completely different.
Yeah,
And that starts changing you, you know, into a better person. That starts changing you, and you want to continue to learn, you want to continue to do better, you know, because you feel like it's not just for you, it's for others,
yeah.
you know.
You're not going to be inspired by anything in life that you don't stretch to reach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and think about that. You can think about that in your finances, in your family relationships, and anything. It's the stuff that you needed to work really hard for that has true meaning to you, that makes it a lasting change in yourself emotionally and spiritually. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
and in the case, I mean, again, I love to throw physical fitness into stuff. It's the same thing. It's the stuff that you push yourself to get done athletically or physically that are going to have the greatest impacts on your body and your mind. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so
And
it's
you
just
help.
it's really important. Well, yeah, sure. That's
Yeah.
another huge part of it. Sure.
Yes. So the next mind shift we wanted to talk about was you find what you are, you know, and this is a huge one. I always talk about this um when I do my workshops and stuff and talk about the self-love topic, right? And one of the examples I always use is if you don't fill up your love tank, you cannot expect for anybody else to come and fill it up for you. You know, if your love tank is this much full and you have this little space, the other person is going to come and it's just going to give you that little space that you're missing, you know? So this is what my mindset was before. I need somebody to complete me, you know, so that somebody will come and just give me that
I
little,
don't think you get
that,
much. I
not
swear,
even,
I
right?
don't know. I think that whenever you're depending on anyone else to create fullness and completeness in you, you will be unhappy in that relationship,
Yeah.
regardless of what kind of relationship that is.
Yeah. So when you come to a place, you know, and you're not giving yourself enough of what you want to receive, you're not going to receive it, right? So that self-love, I mean, the amount of love you want to get, you need to give yourself first, right? If you want to be respected, you have to respect yourself first. If you want people to fulfill their promises, you have to fulfill your own promises first, right? So you have to give yourself and be that person you want to find outside in the world, and another thing is to speak to yourself with respect, talk to you like you want other people to talk to you, because I find that we as women especially, we just we have such a horrible language, to ourselves, and we just criticize ourselves like nobody else does,
People in general do that. I wouldn't say that that's reserved for women, or that women are particularly harder on themselves. I think you women may say different things, and some of the same things to themselves that men say, but I think the internal dialogue in general for people is it can be pretty cruel. And along with what you're saying in terms of um, you know, do those things for yourself first. Yeah, but I challenge you to say, and do them for others first too. Do them from the best parts of who you are, and eventually you you will find the other people that know how to reciprocate that, but you have to lead with that. I always tell my kids that, like, just be the bigger person in the room, be the person who sets the standard, hold the door, whatever it is. Say please, say thank you, raise your hand. Just be, be what you want to to have an existence.
Yeah, of course. You want to give kindness, if in order for you to receive kindness too. And I know someone in my life. I remember um she would always say, I mean, I just I have this bad luck with men and blah blah blah. But when I think about her and I'm like, oh my God, but you're always cheating, you're always lying, you're stealing from this man. And I'm like, how do you expect for these men to make you their everything, and be faithful to you if you're not giving that in return? So, and the irony is that she thought she deserved it all, right? But she would always find what she was, she wasn't a loyal person, so no one was loyal to her. She wasn't an honest person. She couldn't find honesty anywhere. She wasn't um a faithful wife. So she found that too. She found unfaithful people around her. And that's the kind of people she attracts, you know? And I mean, you cannot expect for the world not to give you what you are. That's exactly what you're going to get, So if you want honesty, you need to be honest. If you want loyalty, you need to be honest, And that starts with yourself. Be honest to yourself, be loyal to yourself, you know, respect your word to yourself. And this is huge for me, and I've seen this in real life with many other people, with myself too, when I wasn't willing to give my best, I always got my mediocrity, always. So that's why now I'm just very conscious of the way of the things I do, of the things I say, the way I speak to myself, and the things I promise to myself, because I don't want to let myself down any longer. I'm done. I'm tired of doing that. I've done that for way too long, you know.
Good.
Mm-hmm. So now Tom is going to talk about mind shift number 10. Mm-hmm. And mind shift number 10 is be average
Be
at
average
almost
at almost everything.
everything.
So this was another really, I thought this one was great. Again, there's 13 of them. You go through each one, you're like, wow, this is powerful, this is powerful, this is powerful. And by rights, we could probably do an episode on each of the 13 mind shifts. But this one, if I had to pick, be average at almost everything. And so this is like the story of my life in a sense. And he goes on to talk about the different mindsets you know, in history in terms of what education, you know, meant to people and what the goals were. And I'll kind of touch on those things, although it's not really where I'm going personally with this, you know, and so, you know, the education system, the current education system, basically teaches you to regurgitate, you know, information on a lot of diverse subjects, and kind of makes you a generalist with no real direction. And so, you know, people go to, you know, primary school, or, you know, secondary school, and grad and post grad sometimes. And they really don't have a focus. You know, they're not keying in on their specialties. You know, everybody's worrying about getting, you know, I want to get an A in trigonometry, and, you know, whatever it's going to be. And, you know, maybe your affinity is, maybe you're fantastic with language, or maybe you're an incredibly skilled musician or a great communicator. And so, you know, what he proposes is, well, how valuable is that A in something that you're not necessarily going to be excellent at, aside from the discipline of doing it, right? I mean, and that says something too. You know, you study, you master a topic, you're able to articulate the topic. Sure, that's got value. That's a disciplinary practice. You know, it's a reflection on work and all that. But what is it really doing when you're okay at a lot of different things, you know, and not really focusing on maybe that one thing that you're excellent at, that thing that you should be bringing to the world, you know, whatever that particular, I'll use the word gift, you know, because I think they are all gifts of the spirit. And so, you know, Erwin goes on to get into that. And I can tell you that, you know, and he closes with, you know, if you want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, you'll truly be a master of none. And so, you know, I happen to be a person that has a lot of diverse interests, that has a lot of hobbies, and, you know, very humbly, I say I'm good at many of them. You know, I happen to, you know, be mechanically inclined, and you know, have a few other areas of proficiency. And so I can do a lot of things, but I've also spent a lot of my life doing things I probably shouldn't be doing. I don't need to really work on my own car, or cut my own lawn, or paint my own house, you know, aside from the fact that I can do it. Is that really the best use of my time?
Mhm.
You know, and the answer is no. You know, the answer is specialize in what you're excellent at, and then pay someone who's excellent at painting to paint, and someone who's excellent at auto mechanics to repair your vehicle, or work on your house, or whatever that might be. And so the jack of all trades, master of none, you know, is 100% true. And Erwin, you know, again, surmises pretty much what I just paraphrased, which was, be excellent at that thing that you are designed to be excellent at, and pay the other experts to do the things that they're good to, you know, excellent at. And so I thought this was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel you and I have that specific um thing in common. You know, we both have different hobbies, and we love doing a lot of things.
Yeah, and I don't want to
And
know everything in completeness. Like when I discover something new, I immediately, you know, study it, and I want to learn all about it into really uncomfortable depths that most people don't care about. And then, you know, that's it. I commit it to my body and knowledge, but what do I really glean from it, other than maybe some, you know, interesting conversation? Is not much. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
and
And
I could bore you to death if we were doing time together or something.
oh my God, yeah. No, the thing is, you know, we really spend so much of our life, so much of our time dedicating it to all these little things that at the end of the day are not relevant to
Mhm.
to what our
Yeah.
purpose is supposed to be, right?
Mhm.
And then, but I feel like that's also because we didn't really work on finding what our purpose was, or we didn't really know what our purpose was, right? So I was pursuing my fashion career. I was pursuing, like, I mean, I'm a DIYer at heart, right?
Mhm.
And and for a moment I was like, I thought that was what I was going to do forever, right?
Sure.
And then some little projects here and there. But then when I discovered that my purpose was helping others,
Mhm.
this changed my whole, you know. But then I also think I can use fashion because I teach the girls how to sew, how to do like the
Mhm.
creative stuff. So
Mhm.
I am incorporating all I know
Yeah.
into my workshops,
Mhm.
you know, which makes it, now it's giving all these things I know a meaning, because I'm teaching them how to do all the stuff I know or all the stuff I learned.
Mhm.
But having that purpose gives all of these things a meaning,
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And again, it certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't have hobbies and passions and interests and things like that. It just, it becomes, first of all, especially in your developmental years and your young professional years, your time is not necessarily linear and equal in value. I'm getting a little older than you are and older in general. And so my time today is worth far more conceptually than it was when I was, 15, 16, or 17. I mean, in reality, it's not because your life is relatively short, but now it is for sure because I know for sure I'm not getting another, 50 years most likely out of this body, right? And so I have to choose very carefully how I choose to spend my time now. But in reality, that's always been the case, you know. And so, those things have value, and hobbies are great for you in a lot of ways, and you should have those outputs. But it just comes down to how much of your time you're putting, you know, attention you're putting into those things as opposed to, moving else. I'll use, sports, moving the ball forward in another area, moving the chains forward in another area. I think that really matters, that matters. And so, again, listen, I'm at the point now in my mid 50s, right? Almost mid 50s. Practically, it is in practical sense, my mid 50s. And I realized very recently that what I've enjoyed about my professional life the entire time was the people. I've had a few different careers. I spent 20 years in IT. I just got out of I did 4 years in operations. Prior to that, I was in construction. I have, a good career background. And I've been working since, 13 or 14 years old. And so what I realized, what it was always the people, the team building, the leadership, that the working with others, watching people grow, achieving goals together. That's what I loved more than anything. It wasn't necessarily my IT work, which I love technology, that, and I loved, the operations work and facilities work and all that other kind of stuff. But what it really was just connecting with human beings and achieving things together. Watching people grow and connecting with people individually. And so that's what I will be dealing with the rest of my days.
I'm happy that you finally found what you came to this world to do, and and I feel like
Sleepily.
it's that's what I'm hoping for me. I am really happy you found, what your purpose in this world is, like I said before, and I know it's gonna be amazing. I know it's gonna be amazing because once you devote yourself to that, to what he has put you here to do, everything changes. Everything changes. So I'm happy. I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that we found this book. I'm happy that we found Erwin Raphael McManus, you know, very, very, very amazing personality that I feel that if you are in the pursuit of changing, your ways, your mindset, and the pursuit of living the best life you could live, and living the life at your fullest potential, this is one of the people you want to follow for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that you would like to add?
Nope. If you are interested in finding more about Erwin McManus, he's on Instagram at Erwin McManus. He is on Facebook at Erwin McManus. There is a podcast. I think it's called the Erwin and Aaron McManus podcast. I believe it's in the notes. It used to be called the Battle Ready podcast, but that's an excellent way to find them. And the Mind Shift book is available at Amazon, Google Play Books, Barnes and Nobles, and Target. And Erwin, if you go to www.erwinmcmanus.com, you'll find out all this information for yourself.
And if you are like us, if you like audiobooks,
you're not.
he's also on audiobooks and Google Play and all those platforms everywhere.
Everywhere.
So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you were able to
tuning in.
Are
they really tuning in?
We hope. Well, whoever stayed to this part of the podcast has tuned in. So,
My threshold.
and if you didn't make it to this part,
Smart.
come back.